Alright, so I've done a lot of content on my channel, and I mean a lot, ranging from Cuphead tutorials to Cuphead challenges.
Go. Do it.
Oh my god, that's just
I heard him bite the spoon. Why'd he bite the spoon?
All over his lips, Jesus.
To straight up ripping off game ranks with my Before You Buy series. And at this point, I don't really know what else to do. Do I make some more Cuphead challenges? Do I cover some more games coming out soon? Or do I make some original content that no one has done before? Well, I tried that, and this is the best I could come up with. Enjoy. Enter Mario. And yes, before you say anything, I have done Mario content on my channel before, but I didn't mention it to make the intro sound a little more interesting. But yes, this video is going to be a Mario challenge video, and unlike the last one, this one's going to be somewhat original and somewhat of a yoink and twist. But as you've probably already seen in the title, we are going to be playing Super Mario Galaxy, but to spice it up, it's going to be upside down. Now, how am I going to be playing the game upside down, you ask? Since the Switch doesn't actually allow you to? Well, I'm going to get around this by viewing the game through OBS, which is the software I use to record, and flipping the screen in order to play the game upside down, while turning off my main monitor, which would normally show the actual Switch screen. But now with that explanation out of the way, let's get to the challenge where we start off in the Mushroom Kingdom during the Star Festival, where things are already looking and feeling different than it usually does, which is where we reach our first major problem, which are the controls. Now, just because the actual game is flipped on its head doesn't mean that any of the controls are flipped either. What I mean by this is that in order to move where you want to go on screen, you're gonna have to do it reverse on your controller, as if the controls are reversed, when in reality they actually aren't. So for example, in order to move left on screen, you must move the left stick to the right, and if you want to move right on screen, you move the stick to the left. This problem first arises in the opening of the game, where we're set on this small planet and have to chase the bunnies around in order to progress through the game. But since this game's camera system isn't the best and you're playing with reverse controls, it doesn't do us any favors. Because with the first bunny, it took so long to catch, it literally slowed down for me because I took too long. I have never seen it before in my regular playthrough, so after seeing that, I knew this was going to be a challenge. The next time this issue comes up is in the last sequence of the same opening, where we have to light up all these switches in order to free the Grand Star. And again, the camera does us no justice whatsoever, and on top of that, we're dealing with laser platforms and Goombas, which honestly doesn't help us either. But with only one death, which honestly shocked me when it happened, we're able to move on to the rest of the game and enter the Terrace, which is the first dome in the game. And also, one quick thing I forgot to mention before this started, in order to beat the game, we must acquire 60 stars before being able to unlock the last level and complete this challenge. So now let's get to technically the first galaxy in the game, which is the Good Egg Galaxy, which already showcases its own set of problems already. For example, in the second star of this galaxy, we're introduced to the pull star mechanic, which allows Mario to float in the air when the pull stars are selected using the cursor. But since the controls are reversed, so is the cursor, which in my opinion is much harder to control than the movement controls. But we'll get into that a little bit later. But let's move on to the more harder levels in the Terrace, which is the Loop-de-Loop Galaxy. And to everyone that has played this game before, knows how frustrating this level can be if you don't know what you're doing. And now imagine that difficulty and turning it upside down. Yeah, it doesn't make it any better, does it? But for me, this level wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be when I initially got into it, since it isn't that hard for me when I play it normally, but I did have to take my time when playing through this level in order to get through it, but it still wasn't easy, even though it wasn't as challenging as I thought. And now for the Bowser Galaxy of the Terrace, which is Bowser Jr.'s robot reactor, which wasn't that bad to complete either. Just a little difficulty in getting the bullet bills to follow me and guide it to the star, but other than that, it wasn't that bad. But now for the next galaxy, which is Space Junk Galaxy, located within the second dome of the game, which is the Fountain. The third star of the galaxy introduces the mechanic of the sling pods, which as you can guess was absolutely AIDS to deal with, because unlike the pull stars, I can just point and click onto them with no real risk of dying. But with the sling pods, I actually have to aim with them using the reverse cursor with a really high chance of dying. Like, these things are hard enough to aim with regularly, so it's just 10 times harder when it's reversed. The boss fight of this level isn't too bad, as you're only moving left and right in this level, which makes controlling Mario easier, and aiming with the pods isn't bad either, since the targets are much bigger, unlike the sling pods themselves. And with the hardest of the Space Junk Galaxy done, we can now move on to Battle Rock Galaxy, where we're faced with another challenge, which is playing Garbage Disposal Simulator. This alone is hard enough right side up, but upside down this is pushed to a whole other level. So just to explain the strategy here, in order to complete this, we must blow up all the garbage in 30 seconds, and in order to do that, we must throw the bombs onto the yellow dots on the ground, as they're the perfect spots for the bombs to destroy the most garbage possible. But the issue with this is being able to control Mario well enough to throw them in these really specific spots, which was just plain torture. Like, why does this guy make it a time challenge anyways, when he's probably been procrastinating about this for God knows how long? And 30 seconds too? Like, come on. But nevertheless, I persevered and was able to do it in about 20 minutes when I thought it would take me an hour. And just when I thought I had caught a break from these hard levels, I get slapped in the face with the very next galaxy, which is the Rolling Green Galaxy. And most of you probably know what's coming with this. Just like Loop-de-Loop Galaxy, we use the motion controls in order to control the movement of the ball, but this time it's not only left and right, it's every direction. And let me remind you, the motion controls are also reversed, which makes this level 20 times harder than it already is. The real difficulty arises during the final part of the level where I had to get through the narrow parts of the planet and dodge the Goombas, because once you hit a Goomba, the ball automatically jumps and this can cause you to fall off the planet. Now I know I could have taken an easier route, but honestly I wasn't thinking and just decided to make it harder for myself, which felt so much better after I completed it. The Hurry Square Galaxy was also pretty difficult as I had to navigate a pretty much spherical planet with collecting music notes on disappearing platforms. Collecting the notes was pretty hard as controlling Mario is hard enough, and if I did end up missing one, I had to risk collecting it over an empty set of platforms, which most of the time resulted in death. This galaxy took about 10 minutes to complete, and it isn't as easy as it's usually made out to be. Bowser's Star Reactor is the final level in the fountain, and leading up to the boss fight, the level itself isn't that hard as you're introduced to different gravity mechanics, which is made easy as it's just an introduction to the mechanic. And the boss fight itself isn't hard either, it's just upside down. But now with the Bowser fight complete, we can say bye bye to the fountain and hello to the kitchen as we get into the Beach Bowl Galaxy, which fun fact is one of my favorite galaxies in the entire game. Comment down below what your favorite galaxy is in this game. But the biggest challenge that we face within this challenge is the fact that it's based around water, and let me tell you, if you thought the camera was bad in some of these levels, you're gonna hate this one because the camera in this is a damn near crime as you can barely see anything, and Mario is so much harder to control while underwater, which makes this level that much harder. I'd say the hardest level out of the entire galaxy is passing the swim test, where you have to steal the gold shell from one of the other students and bring it back to the teacher to acquire the star. But I don't know any other way to complete this level other than having god level patience or just getting lucky, which is exactly what happened to me as the penguin swam in my direction and I just spun to steal it and swam away. I think a good strategy is to try to cut the penguin off instead of trying to chase it, but honestly I can't really speak because I lucked out. But up next is the Ghostly Galaxy, where we face probably the hardest level of this entire challenge, and that is the race we have with the Boo in the second star of this galaxy. And to be honest, I don't know how I managed to do it because the whole thing was honestly just a blur, because up until this point I still didn't have a good grasp on the cursor being reversed, and somehow again I just got lucky with the clicks I was getting on the pole stars. So in reality these two levels were really luck based for me and I managed to do it. But this level in particular, you must have some grasp on the cursor controls or else it'll literally be impossible for you. But now with this level out of the way, we can make our way over to the final difficult level in the kitchen, which is Bubble Breeze Galaxy, and my god was this one painful to do. For those of you unaware, Bubble Breeze Galaxy's whole concept revolves around you floating in a bubble and using the cursor to blow the bubble to navigate through the level. But as I said previously, I still didn't have a good grasp on the cursor controls, but unlike the race, there was no time limit placed on my head, so for this level I just had to take my time and try not to rush it because I learned that lesson the hard way by making it all the way to the end and ended up dying because I tried to get the star as fast as I could. So in general the level wasn't that bad to deal with, but the second section is the hardest because there are chances of your bubble getting popped by the rotating wood circles. But now with Bubble Breeze done and the Bowser level not giving us that many issues, it's time for the bedroom where we face the Freeze Flame Galaxy, where navigation is probably the biggest problem we come across here, especially in the second level. Right before we get to the ending sequence, we need to unlock the Fire Flower in order to open the door and then light another set of flames to make some stairs rise. But the problem with this is that by the time we get past the first door to get to the torches, the Fire Flower runs out, which means we have to go back and get the flower, but this time the door is gone and I had no way to trace back to the flower unless I knew where the door was, and everything being upside down just made navigation twice as hard. So I ended up spending about 10 minutes trying to find out where the damn flower was until I finally found it and made it back to the flames and to the end to get the star. But that's not the only level from Freeze Flame we're talking about, because now we have the Prankster Comet, which is a race with Cosmic Mario to get the star, and this has relied on being able to control Mario and not taking dumb risks that could set me behind or get me killed. Because once you make a mistake and Cosmic Mario gets ahead of you, there's no real way to overtake him since, as you've noticed, it's upside down, unless you're some Mario god or something. But yeah, this was pretty hard to do, but very doable as it took me a surprisingly 20 minutes to do. Yeah, that long. And now with Freeze Flame done, so I skipped the last level because it was just infuriating to do, we now arrive to Dusty Dune Galaxy, where the second and last star gives us the most troubles, also known as the Time Challenge and the Sinking Building. Let me explain. In the second star of this galaxy, the ending requires you to navigate this obstacle course in order to reach the star, but to do this, you must ground pound on a button at the top of the building, which makes the building sink into the ground and make it appear on the other side where the star is located, but for only a limited amount of time, which makes you have to race against the clock to reach the star in time. But as I mentioned before, navigating while upside down is pretty difficult to do, especially in a time challenge. This just takes trial and error and getting to know the course after multiple attempts and deaths. But after about 30 minutes of attempting this, I was able to do it, which felt amazing after completing. And for the third star, which are the star shards, were pretty difficult to do, especially the one hidden in the chest, but the real issue is trying not to die to the dry bones because they're everywhere in this level. But with this galaxy done with, we take a detour to the Terrace's Hungry Luma, in which we reach the Sweet Galaxy, which really tests your navigation and controlling skills over Mario, because not only are there constantly moving platforms and turns at every corner, but the gaps in the floor are gigantic, so it's really easy to die or get lost in this level if you're not careful, but this Luma is one of the hardest ones, even though it's one of the first ones in the game. And after we complete the Hungry Luma, we get to the Bowser level in the bedroom, which isn't too bad except for the dark matter squares, which are pretty easy to deal with, but they only appear once or twice, and as usual the boss fight isn't bad either. So with the bedroom done, we get to unlock the engine and be basically finished with this challenge. For the engine, I'm just going to group them up as navigation levels because these levels are all pretty open in their own right. Sea Slide's last star and Toy Time's first and last star are probably the hardest to do, as Sea Slide's last silver star is located at the top of a tree and it's pretty difficult to get, as the game being upside down sort of messes with your brain of which way to land. And flying with the beast suit is made pretty difficult, as well as you run out of energy pretty fast trying to navigate your way around this tree. And for Toy Time's first star, the real issue is the opening, where there's different gravity at every point and it's just hard to figure out where to actually go, so navigating this was pretty hard as well. And for the last star, which incorporated the use of the Spring Mario power-up, which you would assume would be the hard part of the level, but it wasn't. In reality, it was this small ice section, because for whatever reason, every time I'd spin and wait a second for Mario to reset so I don't end up skating, I end up skating anyways and just fall off and die. And this section with the thin ice platforms too, but the boss fight at the end of this level wasn't that bad to say the least, but getting the star was actually hard for absolutely no reason. Like literally, using the spring power-up to get the star was just not it. And finally we get to the Bowser level of this dome, which you guessed it is the return of King Caliente, which was surprisingly really hard knowing how easy the first one was, mainly because of the sinking platforms and the meteors falling from the sky. The boss didn't take me the longest to complete, I just had to take my time and be careful as possible not to die. But now with the engine room done, we can now get to the garden where we do only one star, which is the first one from Dreadnought Galaxy, as all the other ones are hard as balls to do. So let's get to it. The ending sequence of the first star posed the biggest threat, as it's a water section and there are very thin platforms with enemies to get through. I think you all know what I'm about to say. Don't rush this section because it'll only cost you in the long run, and if you end up getting a game over, you'll just end up more frustrated, so just take your time. And now with that star done, we go back and do a bunch of random stars to get the final amount we need to get to Bowser. The first ones we get are two Hungry Lumas, which are at the fountain and the kitchen, which are my worst enemies because one of them uses sling pods and the other is a water level. But they weren't as bad as I thought they were gonna be, so we get past them fairly easily. Next we return to Beach Bowl Galaxy to do the Speedy Prankster comment in order to acquire that star. Then finally we go back to Honey Hive and Good Day Galaxy to do their prankster comments as well, which surprisingly weren't too bad either. But all my happiness went down the drain when I decided to go to Boy Base Galaxy to acquire the green star. And right side up, this green star is pretty annoying to do, as the bullet bills are placed in a pretty weird spot, but upside down the whole time I was just rethinking my life decisions, because first of all, opening the shield cover on the pipe was difficult enough to get past since it's a water level and we all know how bad swimming is in this game. But then we get to the bullet bill section, which was just age to do as well, because either I misstep and fall back into the water or the bullet bills crash into each other. But the power of friendship and a little bit of luck, we were able to overcome it and get the green star. And now with Boy Base done and the final star completed, we are now able to go over to Rosalina and watch this badass cutscene to face off against Bowser in the fate of the universe. Let's get to it. So the whole deal surrounding this level is using all the skills you've already learned from the previous galaxies and performing them in this level. And in all honesty, it wasn't that hard. Yeah, pretty much the only hard part in this level was the gravity section where the platform disappeared and the lava section with the bullet bills, but other than that, it wasn't that bad to deal with. And as usual, the ending boss fight with Bowser wasn't hard either, so yeah, kind of an anticlimactic conclusion. But with Bowser finally defeated and the universe back to normal again, we can now say that we have completed Super Mario Galaxy Upside Down. Subscribe for more content like this, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Take care.